He was Peter Parker's bully, Spider-Man's greatest fan, he became a war hero, and he eventually became a symbiote host. That's the short version. Now, for the long version. Hi everybody, I'm here to talk about Agent Venom. My name is Mayday, and welcome back to the series where I talk about the lore and backstory behind Marvel Snap cards. This week, we're going to be talking about the Season Pass card for the newest season of Marvel Snap, being We Are Venom, which focuses exclusively on symbiote characters. So, the symbiote lore in Marvel has actually progressed a lot past Spider-Man and has turned into its whole complete thing, all revolving around Venom. Today, we are talking about Agent Venom. And who is Agent Venom? It is actually Flash Thompson. He was a bully of Peter Parker's back in high school, appearing all the way in the first ever Spider-Man comic, Amazing Fantasy number 50. He was Peter Parker's, very much main bully hurdle in high school, always constantly undermining him, picking on him, even before he got the spider bite. And this is what you'd be familiar with Flash Thompson through most of the movies. He was a jock who was a part of the school football team, which is where he earned the name Flash from how fast he was able to pitch across the field. And he made it his mission to pick on others to make himself kind of feel better, particularly being puny Peter Parker. This came from kind of an abusive childhood, and Flash was a big problem for Peter in high school, especially when Peter got his powers. He really had to make sure that he didn't fight back against Flash Thompson. But Flash Thompson was very much that standard stereotype of the high school bully. However, he actually grew into more of a different character once they started moving out of high school. So Peter Parker and subsequently Flash Thompson moved into college. They went to the same college together. And Flash actually started growing up. He started growing out of his abusive behavior. He started growing out of being a bully. And eventually, he started making friends with Mary Jane, Gwen Stacy, and he even became friends with Peter Parker in this little friend group and actually got over his relentless bullying and grew into more of an adult, realizing how wrong his behavior was and wanting to move on and be actually friends with Peter. This is helped by the fact that secretly, Peter Parker was obviously Spider-Man. And Spider-Man's biggest fan at the time was arguably Flash Thompson. Flash Thompson defended Spider-Man even when the media and everybody else didn't. Spider-Man was his biggest idol. Very ironic considering how he used to treat Peter Parker. But Flash actually was inspired by Spider-Man in a lot of ways. He would get involved in a lot of Spider-Man stories and would try to recklessly throw himself into heroics. One way he was inspired by Spider-Man's heroism is that during college, he decided to enlist in the army, which was a big shock to all of his friends, but he ended up joining the army and he ended up moving out after a few stories of him being Peter's supporting character. He would move away and have some time being in the military. During his time in the army, Flash actually became a decorated war hero. He put his life on the line for his commanding officer, taking a blast for him, and he was rewarded for his service. However, that came at the cost of his legs during the Iraq War. So while he was serving in the Iraq War, this was the incident that caused him to come back with both of his legs gone, being in a wheelchair, and his friends were there for him when he came back to New York, and they helped him recover and get through the grief of losing his legs. This included his old love interest that he met from his time in the military, Shashan, who you might recognize as his love interest from the Spectacular Spider-Man TV show, and Betty Brant, who became his love interest during the time that he recovered, who you might recognize as one of the staff characters from the Daily Bugle. So, we're going to talk about the Venom symbiote. What was the Venom symbiote doing to eventually end up with Flash Thompson? So, Eddie Brock actually gave up the symbiote at a certain point of time. During a story in the 2000s, Eddie Brock discovered that the symbiote may have given him cancer. And so he decided to forcefully separate himself from the symbiote and sell it. Throw it away, sell it in an auction for a big price to the biggest bidder, and just get rid of it. Get rid of it from his life. The Venom symbiote ended up bonding with Matt Gargan, aka the Scorpion. He was actually Venom for a decent amount of time in the comics, joining a bunch of villainous groups before eventually those villainous groups got taken down and the military seized the Venom symbiote from the Scorpion and he was thrown in jail. When the military seized the Venom symbiote, they decided to use it in a new super soldier program. So, the first super soldier program that was created was the one that created Captain America, called Project Rebirth. This one that they decided to develop was called Project Rebirth 2.0. And Flash was the main candidate for being a part of this program. This program was to bond humans to symbiotes so they could be their agents out on the field. So, they contacted Flash Thompson after he came back from Iraq, and knowing that he had been crippled, they gave him the chance to bond with the Venom symbiote that they had in containment. The Venom symbiote has the capacity to not only give back limbs, but also create artificial limbs made of the symbiote. So it could bring back his legs while he was bonded to it. And Flash obviously accepted. This was his chance that he could kind of become a hero. And so when he bonded with the symbiote, he took on a form that was similar to his idol Spider-Man when he was in his black suit. And this created Agent Venom, more of a militarized version of Venom, and as you can see, he looks very cool. I love his look a lot. And it gave him back his legs, and he got all the powers of Venom, which also included all the powers of Spider-Man, because the symbiote had taken those from his initial bond, which is why Venom had Spider-Man's powers, as you know. However, one interesting thing about Flash having to wear the symbiote is because the symbiote had been uncontrolled for so long, being a part of so many violent hosts, Project Rebirth aimed to sedate the symbiote, to sedate the suit so that Flash could use it and its power without its influence controlling him in any way. The symbiote didn't have much of a conscience while he was wearing it. So that Flash could act as Agent Venom as Project Rebirth's perfect agent. This wasn't perfect, but Project Rebirth used Agent Venom pretty successfully by taking him out on a few missions and Flash Thompson becoming kind of a hero working under that program and under his superiors. So, during those missions, he would make some villains of his own. This included Jack-O-Lantern and Crime Master, two previous Spider-Man villains, but became a lot more relevant to Agent Venom during his series, which is Venom Volume 2 from 2011. If you're interested in reading Agent Venom, that is the main series that you want to read. During this time, Crime Master became kind of his arch nemesis, learning his identity and threatening his girlfriend at the time, Betty Brant. This resulted in a lot of rivalry and a lot of encounters between the two, and this also resulted in Agent Venom getting involved in a lot of events at the time. This also includes Spider Island, which we have mentioned in every episode of this series so far, in every video, which is kind of funny. This involved Agent Venom meeting Captain America, who ended up shutting down Project Rebirth. After Captain America shut down Project Rebirth, Agent Venom went rogue, striking out on his own, and Captain America contacted Red Hulk, aka Thaddeus Ross, to go hunt down and take down Agent Venom because the Venom symbiote wasn't as stable as Project Rebirth had hoped. During some of his missions, if he got angry or agitated, the symbiote could awaken from its sedation and take him over. This would give him a form similar to the original Venom, as you kind of know Venom, and make him go savage. The symbiote wasn't exactly in its right mind at this point in time, so it was important that Flash kind of keep the symbiote under control and sedate it rather than work with it. Red Hulk and Agent Venom would end up meeting in Las Vegas, fighting, but eventually ended up teaming up in a story called The Circle of Thor. This was a crossover story between Agent Venom, Red Hulk, X-23, and Ghost Rider, who at the time was a woman called Alejandra Jones. This is a very fun story. It has to do with Mephisto's son, Blackheart, taking over a casino, and the four of them working to stop him. They die through the course of this story, and get brought back to life by Mephisto himself, because Blackheart was actually going against his father and wanting to take over his realm. And so, the four of them work together by combining their powers in order to defeat Blackheart. They realize they can't beat him alone, and all of them get injured in different ways, and so Red Hulk takes on the spirit of vengeance from Ghost Rider and takes the Venom symbiote from Agent Venom. This creates the Venomized Rider Red Hulk, which you can see in Marvel Snap in this variant for Red Hulk here. Yes, this is canon. It's really, really cool, and I love it a lot. Definitely a standout highlight of the series. From there, Agent Venom actually starts getting involved a lot more in the superhero community, and after some deliberation between a few superheroes who don't trust him because they don't know if he can keep the Venom symbiote suit under control, he is eventually invited into the Secret Avengers. During his time in the Secret Avengers, he does some heroic missions with them, he does some training with them, and this is actually where he meets Valkyrie, who he gains a friendship with, and eventually a romantic connection after Betty Brant breaks up with him. Which is a very fun ship and dynamic that they have through the rest of the series. Agent Venom would eventually meet up with Crime Master again, who would create a group known as the Savage Six, basically his version of the Sinister Six, which also involves Eddie Brock, who ends up getting forcefully bonded to the Toxin symbiote. We will get more into Toxin later in another video as well. As you can tell, all of these symbiotes are very much connected together and all of their stories intertwine. So, Crime Master ends up getting killed by Betty Brant, surprisingly. And Agent Venom has a few more adventures here and there, but becomes a little disillusioned with New York. He ends up moving, actually, to Philadelphia. He becomes kind of the superhero of Philly for a little while. In fact, I think he's called the Spider-Man of Philly to kind of get away from all of the big events that were happening. Just kind of be more of a street-level hero, especially after he finally met Spider-Man as Agent Venom, and Spider-Man's advice was to kind of stay more street level, down to the ground. This was where Flash would decide to become a gym teacher and a sports coach on the side of being Agent Venom, try and live a more normal life and kind of enjoy what he was good at while still being Agent Venom. This resulted in Jack-O-Lantern coming back into the picture and threatening Flash's neighbors. So his neighbors were a young teenage girl from his class called Andy Benton, who he would develop kind of a friendship for because she kind of assumed there was something weird about him, and she lived with her father. Jack-O-Lantern decided to attack Flash's apartment complex and create a fire, which eventually killed Andy's father. When Jack-O-Lantern was attempting to kill both Andy and Flash, a piece of the Agent Venom suit came off. The Venom symbiote essentially split in half, and Andy Benton would become a character called Mania. Mania is a very fun character. She ends up becoming kind of his protege, and Flash takes her on to train her how to use her symbiote without giving into her anger after her father's death. I hope she appears in Snap. She's very cool. After Mania came to be, Agent Venom would actually end up getting into a conflict with Superior Spider-Man, who, if you don't know, is Otto Octavius, who for a time took over Peter Parker's body. And Otto Octavius wanted to steal the Venom symbiote for himself. He made Flash Thompson some prosthetic legs, but it was just a bait to steal the Venom symbiote from him, which resulted in Otto Octavius gaining the Venom symbiote. All of this combined becomes Superior Venom. So Flash Thompson actually had to get the help from the Avengers, and he and the Avengers worked to take down a gone insane Superior Venom, and Flash Thompson worked to get the symbiote back so he could be Agent Venom again. This earned him a spot as an honorary member of the Avengers, and as the Avengers wanted to create more of a connection with the Guardians of the Galaxy and more of the cosmic side of what was happening in the universe, the Avengers actually used Agent Venom as a liaison between the Avengers and the Guardians, with Agent Venom joining the Guardians of the Galaxy. So he joined for a time in one of the Guardians of the Galaxy series, and he was a decent member of the team for a little while. It's just kind of there, but did have a bit of a story arc at one point. This resulted in a bunch of Venomized versions of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and had Agent Venom go to the symbiote homeworld known as Clintar. This would introduce this element of the symbiote lore called the Agents of the Cosmos, and that Clintar was actually the species name for the symbiotes. And that the symbiotes weren't actually evil the whole time. They were legitimately benevolent creatures who could get corrupted and could go crazy. And the Agents of the Cosmos were actually protectors of the galaxy who wanted to cleanse corrupted symbiotes. This retcon did not stick around for very long. Donny Cates, in his Venom 2018 run, would eventually introduce Null, and this would re-establish symbiotes as kind of a more malicious race who could bond to more benevolent hosts and could create more benevolent symbiotes, but they were just a small off-section of what symbiotes are. The Agents of the Cosmos aren't like the main way symbiotes are perceived. They're just kind of a small, heroic offshoot. I mention this simply because Agent Venom does get another series, specifically as an Agent of the Cosmos, working under this retcon explanation. This series is called Venom Space Knight, and it's okay. I think it's a little bit of a weird direction for Agent Venom to go, and it doesn't really lead to anything. But if you're interested, this is how he looks in the comic, and I do think this look is very cool. He would eventually come back to Earth, though. The reason he would come back to Earth is actually because he would want to take care of Mania, who was struggling with both having a symbiote of her own. But when Agent Venom got back to Earth, the symbiote was actually taken from Flash from a villain off-panel, and he was left to die, and the Venom symbiote ended up flip-flopping from a few different hosts back to Eddie Brock at a certain point. So Agent Venom wasn't a thing anymore off-panel to create another Venom series, which was a controversial decision at the time. Eventually, after a couple years, Flash Thompson would return in comics, vengeful for losing the Venom symbiote and wanting it back from Eddie Brock. This resulted in a story where Flash Thompson and Eddie would fight over the Venom symbiote. They actually ended up fighting in a building where some scientists were trying to recreate the Anti-Venom symbiote. We'll talk about the Anti-Venom symbiote a lot more in a different video, but the main thing that you need to know is that Eddie and Flash's struggle was interrupted by Spider-Man, resulting in this recreation of the Anti-Venom symbiote getting all over Flash Thompson in Spider-Man's attempt to kill the Venom symbiote, thinking that it was still a monster. The Anti-Venom symbiote did not kill the Venom symbiote, but instead it created Agent Anti-Venom. This was a way to give Flash Thompson a new symbiote that was an Anti-Venom symbiote while still essentially being Agent Venom, while Eddie Brock got to continue with the Venom symbiote being Venom. You keeping up? I hope so. So, the Anti-Venom symbiote, for a quick explanation, is toxic to other symbiotes, but also has healing properties to most organisms. So, Agent Anti-Venom was essentially Agent Venom, but with healing powers this time, which I think is a cool twist and direction to go for Flash in order to keep him as an Agent Venom-like character, while Eddie Brock, as you know Eddie Brock to be, is still Venom. So, with Flash having a new symbiote form, he ended up teaming up with Venom and Spider-Man in order to fight a villain who had stolen Mania's symbiote, and Flash ended up giving his blessing to Eddie Brock to continue using the Venom symbiote while Flash went off to keep being Agent Anti-Venom. Agent Anti-Venom would end up being a part of this story that involved the Red Goblin. The Red Goblin was introduced in Spider-Man number 797, and this story would conclude in Spider-Man number 800, where the Green Goblin would bond to the Carnage symbiote, becoming a fusion of the two, known as the Red Goblin. So, Flash would help Spider-Man try to defeat this Red Goblin fusion, and he ended up getting killed. Agent Anti-Venom actually ended up dying and sacrificing his life in this story, struggling to be able to heal all of Spider-Man's allies, while also not having enough of the Anti-Venom symbiote to go around, which resulted in him being too weak to take a blast from the Red Goblin and dying in sacrifice to protect Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. Learning Peter Parker's true identity in this story right before his death. He was given a proper military funeral after this story, and after the Red Goblin was defeated, and yeah, for a little while Flash Thompson was dead, and during the Venom 2018 run, Eddie Brock would actually learn of Flash's sacrifice, and the symbiote would actually question if it had preferred Flash Thompson as its best host. Even Eddie Brock admitting he might have even been a better Venom than he ever was. But Eddie Brock is the only one around now, so he's the only Venom that can be around to, you know, save the world, because Noel ended up coming into the picture in that story. This would actually lead to a event called King in Black, in which Noel ends up getting free from the symbiote cage planet known as Clintar and come to Earth to invade it. During this time, Null invaded with a bunch of symbiote dragons, which is just kind of metal as hell. It turns out that symbiote dragons can actually be possessed by dead symbiote hosts who had died wearing a symbiote. When a symbiote host dies wearing a symbiote, they actually still have a little part of them connected to this symbiote hive mind that Null controlled. This little piece of a symbiote host is called a codex, and Flash Thompson's codex was actually revealed to still be somewhat alive within the symbiote hive mind somewhere. And at some point during King in Black, he was able to resurrect himself by bonding his codex into a symbiote dragon, becoming a Anti-Venom symbiote dragon, and coming back from the dead as a dragon, which is just cool as hell. I'm not really going to explain how it works much past that, but I recommend that you read Venom 2018 by Donny Cates into the King in Black event just to see how cool this resurrection actually was. Of course, Flash Thompson would come back in his Agent Anti-Venom form by having the symbiote dragon, because it's completely made of a symbiote, bond to his corpse, bringing him back to life, and him just being able to be Agent Anti-Venom again, but he's still able to transform into a dragon now. So that's pretty cool. And we just have Agent Anti-Venom back, and Flash Thompson fighting the good fight as a hero once again. He's been in a few series since, but that is the main changes and story of Agent Venom up to this point in the comics. So, for media adaptations of Flash Thompson, he doesn't become Agent Venom in very many of them. Obviously, Flash Thompson has been a part of many Spider-Man adaptations. In fact, he was in every single live-action Spider-Man trilogy. Unfortunately, none of them really felt like they were progressing to any kind of Agent Venom or anything. In fact, the only one I could see is the one from the Amazing Spider-Man series, in which the actor even said that he would like to play Agent Venom at one point, but that series ended up getting cancelled. The only time Flash Thompson has been adapted into Agent Venom proper is in the cartoon Ultimate Spider-Man. Flash Thompson appears very regularly as a side character in the first few seasons, but during the Web Warriors arc, he would become Agent Venom and become a part of the team called the Web Warriors, which is a team that Spider-Man creates alongside a bunch of other spider-powered superheroes in that show. The only other major adaptation that Agent Venom has appeared in is in a video game, that being Marvel's Spider-Man 2 for PlayStation 5. However, he's not Flash Thompson in this adaptation, but rather Harry Osborn, who would end up becoming the main version of Venom as the main antagonist of the game as well in this version of the story. Otherwise, Agent Venom hasn't made any other major appearances, which is such a shame because I think he could make for a really cool character if done right, and Flash's story is legitimately one that is really cool and fun to read. So, here's some comic recommendations for if you would like to start reading Agent Venom's story proper. The main one, obviously, I would recommend is Venom Volume 2 from 2011. This is the Agent Venom series. Even though it's just called Venom, it is all about Flash Thompson's time as Agent Venom. This is pretty much the definitive run on Flash Thompson as a main character with the Venom symbiote. His first appearance, though, was in Amazing Spider-Man number 654. Which showed him being recruited by Project Rebirth and bonding to the symbiote for the first time before his series starts. If you would like to see his time as a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, this would be in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, number 14 to number 23. So he joins the team in issue 14, and issue 23 is the end of volume 3 of Guardians of the Galaxy, which leads into a series called Venom Space Knight if you're interested in reading the series where he becomes an agent of the cosmos. Venom Inc., where Venom, Flash Thompson, and Spider-Man have to fight a villain called Maniac, so that's Venom Inc. is what the story arc is called. And Amazing Spider-Man number 797 to number 800 is the story arc with Red Goblin called Going Down Swinging, which shows the death of Flash Thompson. And I would recommend you read King in Black if you want to see where he gets resurrected, but also just read King in Black because it's a really, really cool Venom story regardless, and it's kind of the main defining big event of the whole symbiote lore that we have in the modern era, progressing from Venom 2018 by Donny Cates. So, those are my recommendations for comics. Check them out and tell me what you think. As for Agent Venom in Snap. So, Agent Venom is a 2-cost, 4-power card, and his ability is that he's an on-reveal that sets the power of all cards in your deck to 4. So, every card that you have in your deck from when you play Agent Venom has 4 power now. And he's pretty cool. It's essentially like a Bast for your deck, where instead of being 3 power, it's 4 power. He doesn't have much to do with the symbiote archetype in the game. He's not a destroy type, but I assume this is because his ability is a lot more tactical. And I like his ability. It's really cool, it's really fun, it's gonna lead to a lot of deck building opportunities and puzzles, and I think that's going to be really fun. I'm not sure if I'm going to use him. Obviously, he's going to be best in Cerebro, and so I don't know if I'm the best with Cerebro, but to those who are, Agent Venom is going to be very exciting, and I think he's a pretty good card to base a season pass around because he can be very versatile with a lot of different cards having less than 4 power that you can put in a deck with him, and he's gonna be very, very useful. I think that his season pass variant is very cool. It's done by Pandart, but I will say I need an Agent Anti-Venom variant. If he doesn't get a variant where he's Agent Anti-Venom, then that's just excluding a big part of his history. But also, he just looks so cool. I very much expect that there's going to be an Agent Anti-Venom variant in the game, but that is definitely a variant that I want. But that's all I have for Agent Venom. I hope you all enjoyed learning the history and story behind Flash Thompson becoming a Venom host and becoming Agent Venom, and subsequently Agent Anti-Venom. I hope you will leave a like and comment what you think of Flash Thompson and Agent Venom. Please let me know if you have any questions or any comments about his story, and I hope you will subscribe to see more lore videos on all of the symbiotes coming out in this season of Marvel Snap. It's gonna be a really fun one. You can ring that bell, just like Ben Crode here will do, ding ding, and I hope to see you around for the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate you all, and I will see you in the next one. Mayday going down.